Hello and welcome to Loudcast with me, your host, Kevin Mclean. It has been some time since we had a Loudcast episode, but I am still here, still in my flat in Leith, still bringing you some of the very best of spoken word. And this one is a very special Loudcast because it is all about the Loud Poets Slam series, and particularly the Loud Poets Grand Slam Final, which will be on the 10th of August as part of the Edinburgh International Book Festival. We are hyped, and to get that hype train rolling, we thought we would have a very special episode of the Loudcast where we sat down with last year's winner and had a chat about last season, about this season, because last year's winner is going to be our sacrificial poet for this year's Grand Slam final and one of the all-important judges. And that is a heavy responsibility. So we thought we would get the pro, the person who won, the person who smashed the Grand Slam final last year, the incomparable Rosie Jo Hunter. If you have not seen Rosie's work, she's an absolutely spectacular spoken word performer. We were blown away by the work she did, not only as part of our slam, but just in general in the scene. She's been tearing it up. And she is going to be, a big part of this year's Grand Slam final. But if you have never seen Rosie's work, well, what are you doing? And you're clearly never been on our channel before. And if you haven't, if that is the rare occurrence, you are one of those people. Well, I thought we could kick off with a little taster. And what better than Rosie's final poem at last year's Grand Slam final, the winning piece, the piece that pushed her over the line or made her the inaugural Grand Slam final champion. And that was a poem called Body Horror, and it's accompanied by the spectacular Mr. Jack Hinks. Again, if you've been on this channel, you've definitely seen Jack Hinks. So yes, this is that piece. We will be right back in a moment.
Good evening, Jack. Your 3 words are angry trans bitch. It's not a roll call, but thank you. Body horror. Horror body, I feel something on me, snarling, crawling, peeling away putrid, appalling layers of flesh, divots of mesh in my skin soft to the touch, nicky rush as I feel my chest contort and compress. In this moment, I am in the shape of a dress. The moon is dressed as Saturn tonight. Clouds cross the middle to impersonate rings. It's funny how covering one part can change everything. Body horror, horror body. Nothing can be fixed till it's all broken. So hate me till cracks form. Berate me till this shell is torn. Hell hath no fury like a redacted, scorned. What am I? Why am I? Target me with your diatribe. Skin split, start to emit bad vibes. And I apologize. For in this moment, I am in the shape of spite. Body horror, horror body, miffed at the mist that makes most things foggy. I crave for you to see me as nothing more than skin and bone. Barely human, barely breathing, best left alone. Baby, I will not bite the hand that feeds. I will open my throat and let it recede till I bleed, till I purge every seed of the man you believe I was born to be. If I fucking kill him, will you finally start seeing me in this moment? I am in the shape of restless thought, desperate. In this moment, I am in the shape of a landmine, press it. In this moment, I am every shape and no shape at all. Because my body is not my own. When bodies are prodded, pulled, and thrown around the wrestling ring of your toxic debate, when labels and pronouns you thrust upon me add more weight, autonomy is blown into a million tiny parts, into a million tiny wishes that I could restart as something new, something that I know to be true, something completely and utterly separate from the horror body of you. because I am my own body. I am not your boy, and I am not your girl. I am my own amalgamation of everything that I value in this world. I am my own product. I am my own being. I am my own clumsy version of omniscient, all-seeing. I see the defamation that you throw on our name. I see your proclamations, your attempts to shroud us in shame, but your desperate attempts to darken sparks only fan flame. I am my own broken. I am my own beaten. I am my own chewed up, spat out, not eaten. I am my own living. I am my own surviving. I am my own accession, my own thriving. I am my own. I am my own. I am my own. And you cannot take that from me. Under skin, past bone, I am my own. Body horror, horror body. I feel something on me. There is something more in me. Thank you.
That was Body Horror by Rosie Jo Hunter with musical accompaniment from Jack Hinks. What an absolutely storming piece. It was incredible to see live. It's a poem I had seen before, but it took on a whole new life at the Grand Slam final. Such was the energy in that room. It was an absolutely winning piece. Like I think when that poem ended, everyone in the room kind of knew what was coming next. But to talk about that, to talk about the Grand Slam final, to talk about all the incredible things she's up to, everybody go wild in your living room as we welcome Rosie Jo Hunter!
Yay!
How's it going, Rosie?
I'm grand, Kev. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, an absolute pleasure. That is genuinely one of my pieces of last year. Like I see a lot of poetry live.
Really?
Yeah, I see a lot. And that piece really stood out. It's funny, like watching the video back before we had this chat, and I was just immediately like beat for beat. It was already pictured like super clear in my head. How was that experience for you? Before we get into all this other stuff, the poem, do you remember, or was it an out-of-body experience?
That one specifically was a crazy out-of-body experience. It was just very much that thing of like, we had obviously done the Central Heat, and that was like the most intense gig I'd ever done ever. And I was like, surely it can't get more intense than that. And then the final happened, and like, I was just, it's just that way of like, you never really expect you're going to get that far, even if you do believe in yourself. So when I had gotten to that point, I was just like, okay, me and Jack are just gonna fuck this up effectively. And then genuinely about halfway through, when I started picking up on it, I just fully disconnected from everything around me, and then came back at the end and I was like, oh wow, that was intense. But it felt like everything kind of came together really well, and like the space and the audience reaction, it was, I remember every second of it, but only in retrospect.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, basically the way the Slam series worked last year and the way it's working this year again is we had 6 regional heats around Scotland. In each location, we would have a winner and a runner-up, and those 2 would qualify for the Grand Slam final. We had 12 poets all come to the Book Fest, along with our wonderful sacrificial last year, Hannah Lavery, and we put on this Grand Slam final. And it's a funny thing because it was the first one, and I don't know, we had no idea what to expect kind of going into it, because with slams, you can't curate it, you know what I mean? You have this just sort of whatever happens, whoever wins, and that's what we're gonna have to roll with. So I had this like huge anxiety all year that like,
oh yeah,
crazy people were gonna win, and then it was gonna be, I'm gonna show up at the Book Fest and it's gonna be all these like strange hermit poets who have no social
it's just
skills.
all abstract.
Yeah, and just is the weirdest stuff, and like maybe no one comes because the Book Fest, you know, slam is not a feature of the Book Fest.
Yeah.
And so like, what were you thinking kind of going into it? Did you have expectations of what the final would look like? You know, seeing the other poets, did you have an idea what they might be, or what that kind of crowd would be like?
I think that's a good question. I think that like, because slams, you can do a slam anywhere, and people do. Like, it's very much like you can do one in a tiny basement or in a theater or whatever. Like, and I had done a few slams up to that point. And then I think with the final, like I had actually never been to the venue that the final was in before. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is like big leagues. This is
The Bookfest production is pretty high
yeah,
end.
it was wild. It was crazy. And then like most of the poets I had either known or had heard of, like that were competing in the final. And I was immediately just like, this is like, this is crazy. This is really intense. And it was that feeling of like imposter syndrome, but you also know that everyone's kind of feeling that in a way. Especially in a room like that, in a festival that is considered so like high regard and we're doing poems at it. But it was, yeah, it was incredible. Like I think everything about it and everything that your team put into it that made us feel so held and supported and celebrated the whole thing. It was such a joyous night. And I think that was my it's easy for me to say that this was my favorite part of it, but it was the meeting the people, and it was like getting so much more of an insight into people's work and to really develop that. And yeah, just get to know people was the most valuable part of it for sure.
I think for us as well, like that, it does sound like one of those things you have to say, right? Oh,
Yeah, right.
it was the experience that was so,
Yeah.
but genuinely, that was the kind of aim behind it. For especially for us, where none of us can win, unfortunately. So that's I'll never get to hold that belt. But the idea behind it was trying to link up those scenes, to
Mm-hmm.
try and start to like there's amazing poets all over Scotland. We knew that, but so many of them don't interact as these kind of disparate local scenes that are already in their own area very underfunded. So how are you going to spread your wings and kind of link up with anyone else? And
Yeah.
so the whole idea behind the slam series was really like, okay, slam's a trick in itself, right? Like the idea of slam was it's an open mic, but if we call it a competition, more people will attend.
Yeah,
And so
for sure.
that's the idea behind it. And so you get this, okay, we'll do that. That'll hopefully generate a bit of an audience and get people to sign up. And then you link up those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time we got to the Grand Slam final, seeing those 12 poets all in the same room, and the big one for me was seeing like Lindsay Gilmore and Susie Briggs and Joe Gilbert chat,
Yes,
because they were
absolutely.
so super aware of each other's work, but had never met, had never got the chance to like hang out. And because they all do sort of Scots language, so either Gaelic or Doric or Scots, and to see them like meet up and be able to actually chinwag and share those experiences, it's amazing how quickly the competitive aspect went away.
Oh
Obviously, all the
yeah.
poets wanted to win, but I think there was a genuine vibe of like, I think especially because there had been a heat process, you're going into that not being like, oh, I'm the best poet in my scene, so I'm going to win this slam. You're going
Mm-hmm.
in going, oh, these are all the best poets. So if
Yes.
there's every chance I do not win this slam. Was that your like? How was your confidence level going in?
I think you hit the nail on the head, really. It is that kind of thing of like, as soon as I arrived, even though I had that thing of obviously I did want to win, it was just immediately like, because we were in, a situation that was new to a lot of us, or that scale was new to us, rather. It was that kind of thing of immediately we just kind of supported each other and we just got on immediately. Like I think when we all arrived, we immediately went into a photo shoot, and a photo shoot that was outside,
Yeah.
and we were just, and like it was crazy, like it was really really strange. And then we were like escorted to like a tent for the artists, and they called us authors, and it was really strange. It's like we shouldn't be here, but we were literally just drinking like gin and tonics and just like getting to know each other. And like for me, it was that kind of thing of like I saw people that I had been a fan of for ages. Like Gray Crosby is like one of the reasons I started. Like,
Yeah.
and I had seen their stuff like on like BBC Social and stuff like that. And like I was so like, I can't believe I'm doing this with you. And then to be able to like get to the end with them was like such an honor. And like other like you said, like seeing Susie Briggs, Lindsay Gilmore, and Joe Gilbert like see each other, because I was aware of them, and I'm not really in the same field as them. So I'm like, and Angie Strachan, like every single person that was there, I was equal parts impressed and intimidated by, but everyone was as lovely as each other. And like when we did the Scottish Slam final, a lot of us did the Scottish Slam final this year, and it was genuinely like a family reunion. And we had only met each other at the Loud Poets final, and we were just like, "Oh, great, you're here! Thank God!" And it was just like immediately just such a nice, like tender community that we had built together just in that little group.
That's amazing. Like that is the best thing to hear, and it is the hope that is what it acts as a kind of
For sure, yeah.
connecting factor. I think as well because I mean we were blown away by how many people came. Like
Yeah.
I don't know about the acts, but as the team, when we got that venue and stuff, you know, you're saying yes to things. Like the book fest, we're going to put you in this venue. We're like, we'll
Absolutely.
sure. And like, but we were like, okay, as long as we can maybe half the or you know, three quarters or whatever. But then, you know, we sold out before the end of it. There were almost 400 people in the room with
Mm,
another, I think it was another 150 odd watching online
yeah.
live, which is just crazy to me. And I'm like, I don't know the bigger spoken word event that's happened in Scotland.
No, I really don't think so. There was nothing like it. And also the energy of that room was absolutely insane. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that whenever I have been to a Loud Poets Heat, the energy is like just larger, but that room specifically, like it felt like we were doing sports. And it really did feel like it was, I'm not generalizing, but it was gay sports, and it was like, it was crazy. It was like I just remember it so vividly and being like that was like one of the loudest crowds I've ever heard, and it was a poetry crowd.
It was wild. I remember really strongly as well, like when you finished body horror and you're talking this is, you know, 2 hours deep into a slam,
Yeah.
you know, in because there's 400 people and lights, a warm room, you
Oh
know,
God.
and they have been up the whole time,
Hmm.
and the noise when you finished that poem was genuinely like I had to take a second. I just kind of
Yeah.
stood there like, oh, okay. It was a really weird experience as a host because a lot of the time, especially those gigs we're talking about, right? Some of the heats people don't really know us and things
Mm.
like that, and you know, it's in maybe a venue that's, you know, isn't helping you kind of create a vibe or whatever.
Yeah, for
And so
sure.
you're as a host, you're working really hard to get an audience to stay with you for a slam and give everyone equal kind of love.
Mm.
And to be on that stage and be like, okay, game time, this is the biggest thing I've hosted. Let's do it. And then it be the easiest gig I've ever had to host.
Yeah.
It's just they were up there the whole time. It was
And
insane.
it was crazy as well because like it was such a mixed audience because I could see that there was like a lot of people there that came because it was the book fest, and like people that
There were two,
probably,
yeah, you could see the two different audiences.
and it was crazy because I was very much like I saw some people and I was like, oh, you're not gonna vibe with me, like you're not gonna like this, but then they did, and it was
Yeah.
like immediately like these people that clearly hadn't been to a slam before, and you always ask like who's been to a slam before, who's not been. That was like the loudest cheer that I'd heard you get for
Yeah.
people that had not been to a slam before. And then I could see people that were actually like bewildered by the end of the first half. But then it was like there was so many people that came up to me like afterwards being like, oh, I've never seen anything like that before, now I want to get into it. And I think that that's the incredible thing about slams, that it's like I found spoken word the most accessible creative outlet to be involved in and to kind of garner a community. And I think it's very much like you can go to a slam and like you are actively encouraged to think, oh, I can do that, or I could do
Yeah.
something, I can put my own spin on that, and then go and do it. And then, like, I've met people over the last year that have started doing spoken words or even just started writing because they were at that night or because they had seen like a video of mine or one of the other finalists on the YouTube channel. And it's like, this is the point. This is like why you're doing it. And
It was
it's lovely to see.
it's very strange because obviously we put the whole thing out on YouTube so you
Yeah.
could follow the whole slam series, which again was part of the idea of like people should know what the Inverness scene looks like, and people should know
For
what
sure.
the sort of West Coast stuff looks like, and that, like, and be able to understand the whole of the Scottish scene. And but it's still funny because I see, our analytics, people watch it, but it's a very like disconnected thing.
Mm,
Even just the other day, someone was like, "Oh man, that Inverness heat was crazy," and I was like,
mm.
"Oh, you watched it?" I went, "Yeah, like I watched the whole thing." It's crazy how viewed it was, and it felt like this. It's interesting you say like gay sports, like
Yeah,
this idea
it's gay
there were
sports.
people watching along, and I know the people at Dumfries, the Stove Network, they did like a watch party to kind of support Susie and Chelsea. Like they got the kind of regular open micers and stuff all went to the Stove, and they
Uh,
did it on the big projector screen, watched the Slam final,
I
and I got a
love
text
that.
about it during the final. I was like, this is such a crazy thing to do. Um, it's interesting you say the audience kind of being like, oh, I don't know if they're going to vibe with me, or the sort of gay sports thing was
Yeah.
how the range and the sort of range, not only of like stylistic range in terms of poetry presented, but
Hmm.
also like the range of voices on the stage was crazy. Because
Yes.
if you go back 10 years ago in Scotland and look at Slam, that's almost certainly a bill of like 10 dudes who look exactly like me, and
I
like
wasn't gonna say it, Kev. I wasn't gonna say it.
I did the spoken word showcase the year before at the Book Fest, which is their kind of first foray into spoken word. There was 9 poets and sort of hip hop artists. It was an incredibly
Mm,
diverse lineup,
yeah.
and they were like, "Can you just sort of mention how like rangy?" I made the joke. I was like, "And an incredibly diverse lineup." Not so diverse that it doesn't have 2 white guys called Kevin on it, because it was me and Gill Day were both in the lineup. So you're like,
Of course.
diversity. Hmm. But yeah, I was so blown away, especially when you can't curate that. Like we work really hard on our showcases to make sure that like the range of people are showcased, right?
Of course.
When you're doing that in Slam, I was blown away because, like, yeah, 10 years ago it would have been you could hardly get women to sign up to slams. Such was
Yeah.
the kind of vibe around it. I was blown away. We had like I said, a Gaelic speaker, Scots speaker, Doric speaker. We had 2 white guys, and they were both disabled. And you're like, at that level of you know what I mean? It shows that if you create the platform and the stages for people and give them the space to actually represent themselves and make it a space that they feel comfortable, people will sign up for stuff like Slam. They will know
Yeah.
they are welcome on the stage. Was it surprising to you that the kind of makeup of that grand final?
Not especially, honestly. I think that I can't really remember if I followed it as closely. I'm following it so closely this year
You hooked.
because yeah, it's the equivalent of how I imagine cis men follow the Euros. That's the attitude I've taken towards this year's. Like
Yes.
I don't give a shit about football, but I'm watching this like hardcore. But last year I think that when I saw when I started seeing like the people's names come in, I was immediately like, I know that name.
Yeah.
And then it was like all of them, like Jack Hunter. I love Jack Hunter with all my heart, and like
Nice. So man.
yeah, just the best. And like I immediately was like, yeah, of course he's coming in. And it was the same with like Tom Bird and like Chelsea Nash. Like I competed with Chelsea Nash the Glasgow heat of the Roundhouse Poetry Slam heat last year, and was a massive fan of her. And then of course Gray, Angie, all of them. And how can I not shout out Georgia Bartlett McNeil, who is just like not only like one of the best poets in the game, like period, but also has been such an incredible friend and cheerleader like the entire time I've started. So like I think that I wasn't really surprised by the makeup of that, but it was like so impressive the amount of range and the amount of talent you got in one night. And also those tickets were dirt cheap. Like I for what you were getting, like it was just like I forgot that I was competing. like I was in the front being like, I am so happy that I got tickets to this incredible event. And then it's like, oh shit, I need to go and do my thing now.
It's the first thing
Um,
Jack Hunter said to me. It was because
yeah.
I think he went out first round and he was like, "Oh, amazing, great! I can sit and enjoy this now." He was
Yeah,
like,
well, because we
"Best."
were both hunters as well. I was listening to Bob the Bob the Bonnie Baker's boy, and being like, "This is so good! I'm having the best time." And then I was like, "Oh, it's me now.
Your turn, yeah.
I guess I should do the sex trauma poem." Like, I just I didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah. I think it's amazing as well. It was interesting because you're listening to some people there and like other slams that went on. And one of my favorite things about slams, and I try and get across to the slammers, is people who are maybe newer to slam
Mm.
take it like can take it quite hard. And like I always try and get across them. You run the same slam in a different order, in a different night or whatever, and it will change. And I think it's very telling you see that. Like the current Scottish Slam champion at the time didn't win our slam.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, and you had a situation where like you didn't win your heat. You were the
nope.
runner up in your heat, but went on to win the slam. Like it is so variable to that individual like night and that performance and who those judges are and how that works. You're following it closely this year, but last year, who kind of stood out to you? Is there like a video you want us to pick so we can highlight someone else from last year's slam? Who you got?
So I thought about this for a long time because I was immediately like, I want to pick someone that I have gotten to know and became a fan of through the Slam series last year. And immediately the one of the first that came to my mind was the Routin Brig by Susie Briggs. And I adore Susie Briggs so much. Like immediately I just felt so comfortable and like calm in her presence. And she's such an excitable and like lovely, enthusiastic person, but I immediately just feel so like, oh, thank God you're here. And I picked the Routin Brig because like obviously like my stuff, I don't do a lot of stuff in Scots. I don't know a massive amount of Scots or kind of play about with that much. And I sometimes feel like poetry written more heavily in that dialect I can find a bit daunting or a bit intimidating sometimes. I worry that I won't be able to understand it. But as soon as I heard the Root and Break, even though there was words that I didn't fully know the meaning of, her delivery and her world building made me understand, and I was never lost. And like she has such a way, like I don't think anyone has captured verbally the feeling of nostalgia more than her. Like
Yeah.
I felt like I was like transported back to my own childhood in that poem, even though I had no idea that this place, the Root and Brig, existed. And like there's like little lines throughout it that always just stick with me, especially at the end when she says, "I can hear my dad say, Susie, look up." And also, can we talk about the Dumfries slam of this year where it was ghosts?
Yeah, that was pretty weird. For those that haven't seen it,
Clip that shit because honestly, it's crazy.
yeah, it was. I'll see if I can clip it in and show you. But basically, this light just like activated, which was this really intense moment. Susie was the sacrificial for the heat, and she did the root and bring again, and it just like as soon as she's talking about her granddad and this light came on, it was this really intense moment. You could feel this weird energy in the room. It was, yeah, because I don't think you're right. Susie is such a good like she uses tone so well. And
Yeah.
I
Oh,
do a lot of workshops about like spoken word, and I'm like, the words, obviously you have this huge impact, but you're trying to get across complex ideas. You have to use the full toolkit that you've got, and like
mm-hmm.
the range of your voice, volume, pitch, pace, like
Absolutely.
is so important. And Susie is such a master of that, of saying, like you said, like she can almost like she has a nostalgia tone, and it's so hard to
Yeah.
replicate. But she transports you to a place. You feel the fairy tale in it. You feel the magic when she's talking about something.
Absolutely. I feel like, yeah, she's such well, I mean, she literally is a storyteller.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that, like, yeah, verbally and also physically. Like I remember so many parts. Like I always remember she does this when she's in the car, and like the way that she moves her hands, I like as she's storytelling. Everything is so deliberate, but nothing feels forced, nothing feels frantic by any means, and like it just feels so like fluid and natural, but controlled and choreographed. And like yeah, honestly, like I mean, I loved that poem before, but like I think like I watched that Dumfries Heat this year and I lost my mind. And then when I was at Glastonbury, I met the absolutely wonderful and very talented Colleen Wood, who competed in that heat. We love Colleen. Everyone should check out Colleen. But literally like I was like, oh yeah, no, I watched you in the Dumfries Heat. And then we both went, did you see the light that went above Susi? And we were just like, oh, what that's crazy. And and that just solidified my love for that poem, because it's like, if there is any poem that is actually magic, it's the Routin Brig by Susi Briggs.
Beautiful intro, Rosie, and let's jump straight in to the Routin Brig by Susi Briggs.
And finally, I'll take you to a little childhood memory place of mine. It's a real place. It's called the Routin Brig. It's not far from here. Yeah, the Routin Brig, you know it? It's a wonderful place. I was there just the other day and just, lovely. Anyway, the Routin Brig. Let's gan for a run. 7 of us pile into the Brun Reynoldt estate, wriggling for room. My sister Debbie hods me ticked around the waist in the days afore seatbelt laws. My other sister gurns about my brother's bony air sticking into her leg and gets told off for swearing. Papa stops at the shop for juice, crisps and sausage rolls. We didn't gang that far, but at 4-year-old it felt like we were gone to the moon. Awa for the clatter of the council estate, awa for the noisy neighbours, and that raj wee boy at the back, who I piddled on the slides and nobody else could play on it. Papa says, look for it to the road ahead, Susie. You'll no get sick if you do that. And stop eating your snorters, you'll get worms. Down the road, past moo-coos and sheepy maze, I anticipate each bend to where the wild garlic and the bluebells await. I seek the kirk o' iron grey, a beacon in the summer sun. Its familiar sandstone and white paint, a signal that we're no far now. We stop, just afore the Brig. Oh, arms and legs, I burst out the car, dappled green and sunbeam swirls. The wee birds lilt their skinkling sangs o'er the roar of the blattering water. And my wee heart loops and thrums, and I get instant fairyland disco fever. I run to the top of the steep path, down onto my hunkers, I skiddle down to my enchanted fairyland escape. The rocks and ferns conceal secret places where fae folk hide from mortal men. But they dinna hide from me, though. They ken I'm all richt, and they come out to play. I marvel at the white waterfall cascading bricked, plashing against the arc wet stains. A rainbow portal shimmers and vanishes. I slip off my shin and I plant my feet on the dry shingle shore. Grit finds its way between my toes, then disperses with the first dip. Each slow step in the caul brown water finds foothold and grooves between slippy stains. My hands racks out, ready to touch the muckle rock jutting out for the forest edge, into the flow, pure and certain. Paddling pixies and drouthy bumblebees enjoy the shallow water pools of this ancient mossy seat. Above the arched frame of the cascading white water, my old papa has ascended to the top of the tree, or so it seems. And I can still hear him shout, Susie, look up! Oh. you do that? Thank you.
That was Susie Briggs with the Routin Brig. What an absolutely tremendous piece. Yeah, mad love to Susie. She is absolutely one of my favorites. And again, someone who, like, before the Slam series, before we started kind of touring about, I knew her as the Scott Screamer, but I'd never sort of met her particularly. And to see her perform at the Stove and everything she was doing was amazing. Interestingly, the Scott Screamer has qualified 2 years in a row because Shane Strachan is in the.
Oh, of
So
course.
he was the previous Scott Screamer before Susie. So we've doubled up on Screamers, which is a pretty good way to go. What you were saying about the Scots language and stuff as well is so true. Like, watching that, Susie does such a cracking job of, like, I can follow Scots. I wouldn't be able to speak in Scots, but like I follow most of it. But she does such a good job of like cueing what that is. I was recently in Germany, and I was doing like some poetry stuff out there, and I was part of a night, and everyone else was doing poetry in German. And it's my favorite thing about spoken word is I don't know what the poems were about, but I could tell you, like, because someone was asking me about it after, and they were like, "Did you get anything out of this?" I was like, "I know that those poems were topical. I know that they were sassy. I know that they were funny.
Yeah,
I know
right.
that they were like." All those things from tone, from body, from that presentation, and it's something that, like, is uniquely true to spoken word poetry as opposed to page poetry. There's I couldn't sit and read a poem in German, but I can sit and enjoy hearing one. It's people should experiment more with language. And we had a bunch of that. Like, I remember Georgia, a big bit of her first piece was in Spanish and stuff, and like,
Yeah.
it's so much fun to play with. But yes, this year we jump forward in time. So you are now in the luxurious position of no longer having to have the horrible anxiety of competing, but
Oh no.
instead get to sit back and scrutinize and judge. Which, if I mean, you remember last year's Grand Slam final. I'm amazed that you agreed to judge, because this is not a happy experience being a judge. Are you looking
Honestly,
forward to it? Are you concerned?
I am really looking forward to it because I have been such a fan of like watching along with it. Like, I'm just so excited to be able to get to be a part of it. But like, I am also incredibly daunted because that, like you said, the judging was not an easy job last year. And I think because like everyone was so incredible last year, the standard's even higher this year. Like, the final lineup is insane.
It's pretty wild.
And like, and it sucks as well because I've met all of them and they're all lovely. They're all really talented
You
and
met
really
everyone on the
lovely.
bill. That shows
I
how well traveled you are.
I think I either like I've met them in person, or we are mutuals online.
Yeah.
And I'm familiar with their work and I know that they are lovely and talented. So it's like, oh, can we not just, like, this is the thing. There's very few pricks in poetry and they never get far.
No, they get
they
removed pretty
get booted pretty
quickly.
early on. So it's literally immediately like, oh, the final is like just full of lovely people that all deserve to win. So
The thing that blew my mind is it's a totally new 12.
yeah.
There's no one who was in the final last year.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because I didn't know of it. Like, obviously, I wasn't going to sign up, defending champion, but I was like, interested when I saw there was some people that were in the final last year that were competing again, and I found that really interesting, and also was like, that's crazy that it is a completely new 12 now.
Because we had that thing, we had a discussion about it in the sort of like poets team of how we would approach it, and so we decided we would have the winners from last year's heats be the sacrificials, which kind of eliminates them,
Sure.
certainly from competing in the same heat. They could go and compete in a different heat, but like it kind of took them out of that. But we were like, what do we do with the second place folk? And we kind of decided, like, if you came second, the only prize is getting to the final. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it was like, it was that thing of going, you should have a chance to win a heat. You should have and you were the only one who won the finals, and we know you're going to be the sacrificial. So
Sure.
again, it was that thing of kind of going like, no one that won that prize could win that prize again, or any
Yeah.
of the prizes again. And so
Exactly.
it seemed fair to be like, okay, have another crack at it. But I was genuinely surprised, and some of them came very close,
Mm. Yeah,
sort of
Lindsay
third
came
spots.
third. Yeah,
Natalie
yeah.
Jane Clark as well came
Yes. Yeah,
third
yeah.
stanza. And it was just really we at the point that we decided people could sign up again, I was surprised that we didn't get at least one person kind of
Yeah.
sneak through. Sounds terrible.
But I think that speaks to the standard as well. Like, is like, I mean, everyone, and that is the thing, is like, as you said, any other different heat, like any other night, even if it was the same audience and same judges, it could be a completely different result. And I think that that just goes to show, especially if they competed in the same place, it's like, it's different even the tiniest of circumstances make these like worlds of difference.
Yeah. What was interesting as well is I think the appeal of it has obviously grown, because it was quite interesting in Dumfries, because you mentioned Culane. So Culane has family in Dumfries, so he competed last year and this year in Dumfries, but
Right.
he's from Manchester. And we had two other people make the drive up from Manchester to compete in the Dumfries heat.
It's
And you're going,
crazy.
that's amazing. Like, and a big part of this was trying to be like, make Scotland a draw, right? Like, people
Mhm.
talk about the Roundhouse Slam and stuff, and like these big sort of English slams that happen, and we're trying to be like, this should be the one that you want to win. Part of
Mhm.
that is putting like a proper monetary prize of being like 3 grand.
Absolutely.
That's worth making a 2 hour drive, you know.
For sure.
Like, it took them less time to drive back to Manchester than it did for us to drive back to Edinburgh from Dumfries. So
That
you're
is
like, why not?
wild.
Why not go and do it?
Yeah.
And Noor, who is qualified, she's one of them. She was up from Manchester, and you're
Yeah.
like, suddenly then you're making this event that is a pool, not just from a Scotland base, but from a UK wide base,
Mhm.
which is mind blowing to me. I mean, I've got aspirations, long term stuff, but I didn't expect to achieve that in like year two, to have people
Yeah,
kind of ringers coming in, which is
absolutely.
crazy. Um, do you have advice, Rosie? Obviously, you know, you can't give them that secret sauce of how to specifically impress you, but in terms of how to approach the final, like how to deal with that kind of idea.
By secret sauce, do you mean being trans? Is that
Yeah,
the secret?
that's the secret sauce. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, listen, the final three was two trans people and a she they. So that's all I'm saying.
yeah, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Just change those pronouns. You're golden. No, no, no. Do I have advice? I think it is very much like, just embrace every part of that experience. Like, I think with the heat itself, the central heat felt a lot more intense because it's a smaller space, and like it was a much like a rowdier room because of the size of that space, and because we were all on the stage, you evil
This
man.
the central heat is pretty intense. For those that did other
Horrible.
heats, less so. Central heat, because we're in our beautiful home at the Storytelling Centre, and because again slams, it sells out, and like that 3 grand cash prize doesn't come from nowhere. So we do have to sell every seat we can sell at all of our events to get those prizes. We had funding last year. We didn't have funding for this year's slam series, and we had some beautiful partners, but both years, because Creative Scotland won't fund the prize, so the regional heats and the Grand Slam final heat, that purely comes from what we can rustle up. So it does mean at the central heat we have to sell all those tickets, which means the only place to put the poets is on the stage. So they have to kind of sit around the sides. But you're in the darkness, it's
We're
fine.
in the darkness, but it was just that thing of like, I just felt perpetually watched, and it was like, it's exhausting because like, one at the final you came off the stage and you slumped in your seat, and it was like, oh, a relaxing moment. But in terms of advice, like, I think it is just immerse yourself completely in it, and like, I mean, you can wonder about structure and content and themes and stuff like that, but as we keep coming back to, it's going to be different every single time. And I did the exact same poems that I did at the heat as I did in the final. And like the result was completely different for like all of the people that like won their heats or came second. Like the order was different, you know? So it's like, I think
Did you have your order set going in? Did you know this is the three I'm going to do and that's how I'm going to do them?
I had like, so basically I hadn't like for the heat, I was really struggling because Kiss Me After is the one that I did first for both the heat and the final. And that was always the one, like it's still the poem that I close sets with. So that was the one that I was like, I should do this last. But then you have to consider if you're doing it with Jack, like if you're doing something that's really rhythmic and he doesn't know the rhythm already, then that might throw either of you off the game. So maybe that's advice. Consider what you want to do with Jack.
Well, Jack's not here this year.
Oh, is he not?
No.
Okay.
Because we didn't have funding,
matter.
we couldn't get carve out that time from Jack because he had to take other opportunities and stuff. So it was we love Jack so much. We value his time. We wouldn't ask him to work for free.
Of course.
But because we didn't have the funding, we can. So he'll hopefully be back next year when we do have funding.
Yes. Well, I mean, that makes it even more interesting, I think, because it is just like that. It's all you, and that's crazy.
Because there was a lot of chat at the pub afterwards about like order and picking how you go, and like do you fire that big gun first, or do you try and save something for round 3? And like it's been fascinating watching this series because I feel a lot of the strongest poems have been round 2.
Yes, I think it's really interesting because Big Man for me, which is the poem that I did second, the first 2 times, thank you, I'm very proud of it, but the first time I did it was the Central Heat. Like that was the first time I had so I didn't actually know how it was going to be received, and then I was like, oh, okay, cool, wait, I'm getting the hang of it. But there's while we're on this subject, there is a clip, because obviously I watched the final so many times last year, and my favorite part of it is immediately after Big Man, it pans to the audience, and there's a very specific woman who goes like this to her friend. And I can't stop watching it because it's literally like I have just shit out my heart on this stage, and she's just like, and I love it. So if she's watching, I love you. I respect you so much.
That's wild.
It's so good, but only I would pick up on that. Only I would be like, I watch my poem and then I just watch all of the audience reactions. But I can't even remember what we were talking about before that. I just had to shout her out.
Yeah, no, that's wild. But like, I think you do have to. For me, when I've done slams, I never set my poems, which can be terrifying to some people. I like to like feel what's happening, like kind of like where the vibe is. Like if say maybe there's a string of like 3-4 funny poems, I'll like do something kind of hard hitting. But if there's a string of like maybe 3-4 hard hitting poems, maybe I'll throw something in light and breezy. And that ability to kind of like pivot and shift and kind of respond to what's gone before to like stand out, like is interesting. Like I think in the Central Heat this year, there was a weird moment of that.
Yeah.
Where like there was a run of kind of sexy poems.
Yes. Oh, there really was.
And then Megan McCorkindale went boom and changed the tone, and it made her piece, I think, like really stand out.
Yeah.
Because it was this total shift. And I don't know if that's what she was sitting there waiting to do anyway, or she was like, because if that was me, I would be sitting going, I don't have a poem as funny or as sexy as the funny, sexy poems that have just happened.
Sure.
So I'm not going to try and match the energy. I'm going to shift it. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting because like, obviously, like if you have a repertoire and like, especially if you're someone that can memorize your poems, then like, if you have the power to adapt based on what's happening in real time, then that's incredibly impressive. I think for me, like both places where I was at in the final in the first round in terms of order. I was so intimidated by, because in the central heat I was directly after Sarah fucking Grant, and then right after Jack Hunter in the final. So both poets who like have a similar vibe to me are both hilarious and talented people in very different ways, but both of their first poems, like Sarah Grant did the one about I think it's her great aunt, and
Maisie, yeah.
Maisie, yes, and that was just absolutely incredible. So that made me like so worried. And Jack obviously did Bob the Bonnie Baker's Boy, which is just so stupid
So
in the
silly.
most wonderful way. So it is that kind of thing of like, but you also can't plan for that. You can't worry about that, because it's like, even if it's like there is a theme going on, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to throw everything you've got at that theme.
Yeah.
And I think that that was the great thing about last year's final, like the fact that we had Georgia doing one about heritage, and then immediately followed by Tom Bird doing one about vibrators and masturbating, and like Callum O'Dwyer doing one about Neil Armstrong, me doing the sex one. Like, it's just like the amount of,
so varied.
You're never gonna get something in a Scottish art scene that is so thematically varied than a poetry slam or a poetry night. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy the amount that gets discussed.
So you have been watching avidly this season, Rosie. You've been on board.
I have.
Now, we gotta, because you are a judge, we're ruling out
We
first and
are.
second places. We're ruling out people who have qualified for the Grand Slam final. They all get the clean slate, Rosie Joe Hunter. Is there anyone outside of those folk that you saw that kind of standout piece for you, that was something you really enjoyed, that you want to kind of highlight?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to, because I'm aware I'm slightly biased with my choice, but I want to like also say, genuinely, like, I have watched every YouTube video of the Slam series this year and have just loved it so much. Like, so many people have been absolutely incredible to watch, like Colleen Wood, Charlie Marachnik, and like, yeah, incredible. Joe Loge and Paisley was amazing, and Fiona Jane. Like, there's so many people across.
Fiona Jane has been my highlight of this year in terms of like someone who is everyone's going to know who she is next year. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like that kind of thing where you see someone, you're like, you are really, really good. She was at our 40 Pride event, just as one of the open mic slots, and I was like, she's so good.
This is absolutely incredible. And like, there's people that like have stuck with me so much and have just been in the first rounds, and like that I have followed afterwards and been such a fan of theirs. And like, Neve Scott is another one that I want to shout out, because I love Neve. But the poem specifically, and the poet that I've chosen for this is my poetry baby, but Drew Gill, who came third in the central heat. He's like one of my best friends, so I wanted to preface that and be like, I like other poets too. But his poem Burial, which he did in the final round and he came third, like, I saw Drew come up the scene. We went to Loud Poets open mic together, and he got the bug, as I did, and like kept going, kept working on his craft, and we kept sending each other our poems. And one of the first ones that he sent me was this poem Burial. And like, I got him into poetry for the same reasons that I felt like I had to get into it, because I needed something that kind of stimulated me creatively, and I needed a bigger sense of community within a creative scene. And to be able to see him do that, and then like come on leaps and bounds, do the feature at the open mic, like do so much stuff, and then do this slam and do so well. I have told him this before, like, it's so lucky that he like didn't place one above, because I would be so scared that people would accuse me of nepo babying him if
you know what's funny, you would judge him harder than the judges will.
I know, yeah, I probably would, and I would hate that as well.
If your friend is a judge and like a decent person, you actually lose out. Like,
Yeah, because it was like, because literally, like, I could be like, oh yeah, no, don't worry, it's not going to affect. I'm going to be entirely impartial. And it's like, no, I'm not, and I can say that now he's not in it, but
Yeah.
I would just be like, oh God, I don't know what to do here. But like, Burial is absolutely phenomenal, and
What a
like
piece.
every single poem that he did that night, he absolutely nailed. He killed it, and I was so proud of him. And like, he's also just the best guy, like just the sweetest man, and like,
Central Heat was so tight this year. It was so
whoa,
tight.
yeah,
And
it was
like
crazy.
Drew blew me away. Like I saw Drew quite early on at the open mic and stuff and was impressed. You know, when you see someone, you're like, oh, you have like
Yeah,
all the
the
central
thing
here, like all the blocks are there. It's just putting them into the right kind of place. Like
for
you can
sure.
see when someone's going to take off. And like, but it was this kind of, you know, a much rawer version of it. And when I saw him at Central Slam, I was like, man, that is, you can see the refinement of the work. You can see
For
the,
sure.
the not everyone needs to, right? Open mics are a great space for just like come share your feelings. Like that's an absolute
Definitely.
thing. But when someone wants to polish it and hone it, and you see them do so, and like that they had all that raw energy, all that like personal, like Drew
Hmm.
really gets into some real deep stuff, like some real
Yeah,
raw stuff, which
but
is so brave to do,
it
but to
is
do so now in a place that doesn't feel not as raw, but feels purposeful. There's a much more selective approach to it, where it is sharing. I always think I say it all the time. Poetry is its best for me when it is personal enough to feel true, but general enough to allow space for the listener to like
yes,
lay their own stuff on it. And I think what I saw from Drew when he first started was very personal. And what he's managed to do now is leave more room for the audience, more room for the listener. And
for
like,
sure.
yeah, it's so strong. And his use of language is beautiful.
I don't know how he does it. Like, literally every single poem that I've read of his, there is at least one line where I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, and it's insane to me. And I think you make a really good point about that kind of being able to access this personal stuff, but also do it in a way that is responsible, I guess.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like, because I I've had this conversation many times with people about my work, like especially with poems like Kiss Me After. It's like, it's personal and it's deep and it's about something that is, you know, challenging, but it's like you are holding the audience, and that is an artist's responsibility in anything that they do, is to
yeah.
hold the person. And I think that Drew does that so well, and like, it's not overwhelming, it's not like
Poem shouldn't just be a
smothering.
guttural outpouring of your inner monologue. Like
Yes,
that's not what it is.
it's
It
exactly.
requires crafting. There's a purpose
Yeah,
behind it. I often think, especially if you're a performance poet, you need to consider who is listening. Who is this
for
poem for?
sure.
Some poems might be for you to just pour. Like
Hmm.
that's totally fine. But if that poem is for an audience, and slam is the ultimate version of that, right? It
Yeah.
is for a very specific audience of three judges. And like that idea of going to just pour isn't necessarily what they're looking for. They're looking for the crafting of a piece to say something, and that is using your experiences, using your, you know, your truth, whatever that kind of looks like,
Hmm.
but to sculpt a larger message, to say something with that experience, with that real truth. And like, yeah, seeing Drew develop that, this piece is a perfect example of it. And the use of language stuff as well. Like I'm a sucker for like these underpinning ideas. Like he uses animals really beautifully throughout Burial in a
Hmm.
way that is like understated. It isn't this overriding central metaphor, but it is these punctuation points that help, anything that helps convey meaning in a
Yes,
spoken word piece is so good. And those very selective points and the use of the consonants around those animals and stuff is just it's so well crafted. And I think
yeah,
it's the best crafted piece I've seen from Drew, where I was like, man, that is what he does taken to the best
for
degree it
sure.
could be
It
taken
is
to.
like, it's an epic poem.
Yeah,
Like, it's just absolutely like godly. And every time I've seen him do it, and like seeing him do it at the seeing him do his feature set at the open mic, like I've seen so many feature sets and like all of them are great and they deserve to be feature sets, but like I I don't think I've gauged such an audience response then from Drew's, like, because it was just so well crafted, so tender, but also so like gutting. And also like but his use of language and his way of describing emotions and heartbreak, like gauge such a genuine response. I love when poetry crowds literally like shout instead of moan. I find it so funny because it just goes from like to literally people going like ah, and I find that so funny. And like I went with Drew to an open mic a couple weeks ago, and genuinely like it was like a wrestling match. Like it was so funny, and he was just like doing a poem about a breakup, and everyone's going like ah.
Nice.
And I think no one can do that better than Drew that I have seen as of yet.
Another spectacular intro, Rosie. Guys, enjoy Drew Gill with Burial.
I haven't seen the sun for long enough that what's left of my skin would singe at the edges, crust and charcoal my bones still wet and hard, wet and hard. Is that what you think of when you stare down at puzzle piece floorboards? How you let a viper's tongue tangle in your guts and opened your mouth like an ocean and let my ship fall in wet and hard and soft like your candlelit wish and hot like the poison I huffed from the lips of an angel who nearly fell for me. Does it bother her there are certain distances she can't reach? The same way it disemboweled me when you heard me scream and sob hard and wet and hard and buried me anyway. You let a viper's tongue tangle in your guts, pull your ribs together like a shark's teeth shut, and I lie beneath your floor. Can she even hear me down here? Or is the washing machine still running? Now I lie on the cement like a bird when it discovers glass is a goodbye gift from the world, and I hear the rain pelting down outside, wet and hard, wet and hard, wet, and so hard that floodwater begins to lift me from the surface of my domestic coffin. It stings every open nerve you laid bare, and my chest presses up against a wet patch on your floor. Now my heart begins to beat. With every pump of blood and flood, I rattle the floor and it dampens like shore. I splinter the foundation piece by piece. If you won't mourn his creation, I'll break your peace. My heart beats through the floor. Had my eyes not rotted away long ago, I'd see you didn't stay an angel. It was written you'd fall. Every beautiful body must rot to feed the earth. I'm carried outside through your window while she wonders how her godly man could leave a corpse so gored. But blessed be God's unfortunate creatures, for I am reborn far away with a memory of pain, the knowledge that it will not stay buried, and a chance at peace far too great for heaven.
That was Drew Gill. Oh, what an absolutely amazing piece. You can see why we're waxing lyrical about how wonderful Drew is. And that, like we said, that came third. Like, that is insane.
Yeah.
Like, just madness. I'm so hyped for the Grand Slam final. I wanted to do a plug there. I was going to be like, it's August 10th, get your tickets. We're sold out, guys. It's going to be crazy. It's we're going to have, I think, 300 people in the tent. It's going to be wild. So yeah, it is going to be available on the Loud Poets YouTube channel. As soon as we can, we will have it up after the final. So if you did not get a ticket, don't worry. Come back to the YouTube channel, subscribe, click the bell, and you'll be notified of when that comes out. So yeah, do all of that stuff. But I mean, the point in the final and the point in the prize is what we want is to get someone who will use that prize to go and do fucking amazing things with. The whole impetus behind the the idea of the slam series was there is not that prize for performance poetry. And I totally respect and love all the organizations, the lit institutions that are trying to embrace performance more. Forward Prize have done so. There's a bunch of great Scottish poets nominated for the best poem performed at the Forward Prize. A Loud Poets video has made it to the shortlist 2 years in a
Go on,
row, which
Layla
is always nice.
Josephine.
Layla,
Come on, Layla.
yes. And last year Bogdan won it, with one of our videos, which is crazy good. And like, there's the New Writers Award is starting to embrace the performance category and things like that. All very good, but still they feel like concessions in what are otherwise literary awards. And we wanted to build a prize that is for getting on a stage and reading poems. And the hope was that someone would win that would use that money. I don't know of another slams don't tend to announce their prize monies, which I always find quite suspicious. That
Yeah.
makes me assume that you don't really have a prize. So we made a big deal out of shouting about like it's a $3,000 cash prize, and that should be a huge thing and should help someone in the same way that winning the Edwin Morgan or whatever does. And we couldn't have been happier for you to win it, because you have done so much since you won that. And it's a great example for us to be able to hold up and be like, take part in this series, because look what people who are winning it go on to do. And obviously we will take credit for that, but it's down to your hard work, Rosie, and you kind of going for it. Did it make an impact? Has that helped? Has that pushed it? Obviously your work is your work, and you were doing great things before it, and like obviously would have without it. But do you think it has had any impact?
Oh my God, like it genuinely like changed my life. And I know that sounds really hyperbolic, but it did. Like, I think that, like, apart from the cash prize, just the confidence that you get as well, and like the connections is incredible. But then being able to take that money and use it to develop whatever you want to do, like, because I just released a pamphlet and self-published one, I was like, I don't think that is something that I'm looking to do immediately after receiving this money. But I was working on a solo show and I didn't know how to do it, so I was able to get like dramaturgical support, technical support. I was able to invest in a PC and be able to make all of the visuals of the show on it. And it's like it was just like so needed to take that next step and to build a brand. And I mean, it also helped that afterwards I came out and was able to kind of build that brand as well. But I think that, yeah, no, every bit of support that you get as part of the slam series and the connections that you make are like so valuable. The amount of people that I've met from them being at the final and then coming to my show is incredible. Like, you will get fans from this, and that's like the most valuable thing, is being able to get, I know we always talk shit about being paid in exposure, but you also get paid. So the exposure is great. The exposure is wonderful when you are paid. But like, yeah, I think that this opportunity and like that award completely changed everything for me and made me realize that this isn't just a hobby. That was the turning point that it became my career. Like, it was immediately like, okay, I'm doing this now. And the amount of opportunities that I got from there, it was just straight up trajectory. And I know that was the same for so many of the other finalists. The amount of opportunities they got like skyrocketed from that opportunity. So that's great to see that it's an amazing opportunity regardless of the result.
Yeah, I mean, that like that warms my heart, because that's genuinely what we want it to be. You know what I mean? It is a kind of platform building thing,
For
and
sure.
like, so much of it, like you said, is the idea that every poet that gets the Grand Slam final gets paid for that gig. And then like I know even now, because I'm building lineups for the rest of our season and stuff, everyone who's made it to the final is going to get like a Loud Poets gig as well. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and things. And then when we come to do Sacrificials next year, that'll be another
Yeah.
paid gig. Like, it is trying to build in that thing of going like, it is not just that one-off thing. This is, becomes 3-4 paid gigs down the road. And I know we have like the person who wins kind of becomes our go-to person to be like, hey, we have this thing or that opportunity. Do you want to come and do it? Because that it makes that the sort of intangible aspects of that prize that aren't like official, hey, you win X, Y, and Z, but like, you know, you get a bunch of videos out of it and a bunch of gigs and that
Yeah,
sort
oh
of
my
thing. But
God. The
the whole the
videos,
energy.
yeah, the videos is like such a valuable thing. Like, and like you get a portfolio without ever having to pay for it. And that's usually such a thing, is like paying to have your work recorded and then paying to own it, which is insane. But like the fact that whenever I've just performed at an event with Loud Poets, then a video is uploaded on my behalf, and now I have something that I can show people. That's incredible. And like,
So you did Glasgow, right? Being able to submit stuff like
yes,
that is like a
yeah,
video submission. All these other awards we're talking about, they want a
hmm,
video submission. Well, here you have a professionally filmed and edited like one of you
exactly.
doing your best performance. Like,
And that's the thing, and that's why I say that like there's so much stuff that I wouldn't be able to do without Loud Poets' help. And that's not saying that like I'm not talented enough without their
oh no, no,
support,
no.
but it's like it's everything that you do, and like everything that is provided to anyone that participates in your stuff, like is given like really valuable shit that very few other organizations are offering for free. So it's like, yeah, like I wouldn't have gotten Glastonbury if I didn't have video footage of my performances. And like the Loud Poets footage just also happens to be the best quality footage of
Yeah,
anything that I've had filmed. And it
it
was
was very
free.
it's very funny because I spoke because I did Glastonbury a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
sort of last year, the year before. It's funny because Helen, who runs the poetry stage, she was like, seen a lot of the Loud Poets stage in submissions this year, Kevin, and I was like, good to know, good to know, because like you
Yeah.
book a bunch of poets, and so it's that thing. Like I've had conversations with people at the Forward Prize as well. They got in
Mm-hmm.
touch with us because they were getting so many submissions from people who had performed at Loud Poets, and I was like, that is such a cool thing to see. But like essentially, like we talk about it all the time, like if you aren't publishing, if you're just, you know, if you want to focus on performance, there's no archive for that.
No.
You know, it's like the National Library, if you publish, your book goes there. There's nothing like that for performance. So
Yeah.
it's important to be able to do. So what have you been working on then, Rosie? What have you been doing? What's
Oh,
happening
let me
now?
tell you. Let me tell you, Kev. So, I have a show.
You have a show. It's a
I have a
good
show.
show.
I'd like to think it's a good show too. But it's called Stupid Sexy Poem Show. We did it at the Scottish Storytelling Centre on in February, and then we took it down to London for a Pinch of Vault Festival. Rest in peace, Vault Festival.
We miss Vault.
We miss Vault so much, but that was an honor to be able to do the last kind of iteration of that. And then we took it to Glasgow International Comedy Festival, and now we're back in the place where it all started for the Fringe on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th, and 19th on the same day as the final. So if you come to the final, you can go literally like 4 hours later. You can come and see Poem Show as well, and like it'll be so good. It'll be a nice poetry filled day for everyone involved. But it's a spoken word comedy cabaret. It's like it's stupid and sexy, and yeah, no, it's been really well received, and like it sold out the first time we did it, and that was something that was completely beyond my comprehension. And yeah, it's just been an absolute joy to take it around and like take it to loads of different audiences and to different cities, and to be able to come back to the Fringe and do it and do it in the biggest art festival in the world is an absolute honor that I did not think that would be possible. And I'm also working on a second book, but that is that will be quite a bit in the future. I think we're aiming for like late spring, early summer of next year. So we're busy. We're working on stuff, and it's all very exciting. But for now, please come and see Poem Show. It starts in 3 days from when we're recording this. So
Yes.
yeah, please come and see it. Come and party in the Fringe. We're gonna have a blast.
Yeah, you will see this probably like just as that's all kicking
As
off.
it started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're kicking off our best of Fringe tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I'm doing that as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Rosie's going to be part of our Best of Fringe show. Come and see her. But go and see her show, like, and
yes.
then come and see her again at Best of
See
Fringe.
everyone.
That's
Yeah.
what we want. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a massive shout out to the Storytelling Centre because,
Yes.
like, I know we have had this is our 10th Fringe run at the Storytelling Centre. It would be our 11th if it wasn't for the crazy pandemic year.
Mm.
And like the support the Storytelling Centre has given us, you know, from those early Fringe years through to then when we moved our season, like our regular events to the Storytelling Centre, has been massive, and it's been beautiful to see the amount of spoken word shows grow at the
Mm-hmm.
Storytelling Centre, and because it's a perfect fit for it. And like I know this year, especially having like yourself there, I know James Steadman is there with Joyfully Grim.
Yes.
Paul Case is in this. He's the Storytelling. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's in the library
Yeah.
for Rogues So Banished.
So there's like this like real crop of spoken word folk like existing in
Yeah.
the Storytelling Centre, and in a space that a lot of poets wouldn't be able to get. Like a lot of poets come up to, you know, to the Fringe and they are very jealous when they come to do our Best of Fringe show at the Storytelling Centre.
Yeah.
Because you know you're normally getting a basement bar in a, or you know, the basement of a burrito shack or whatever. Shout out Ben McPherson. But that, you know, I mean, that is the case. And so to be able to have a space that will take a punt on a poetry show and give
Yeah.
you a beautiful venue for it is massive. So like, yeah, huge shout out to the Storytelling Centre.
Yeah.
It's become a real hub for spoken word in a landscape where maybe places that should be the hub for spoken word aren't really living up to that challenge.
No, they're not. But
So
I think also it's such a great place for the Fringe as well because it's never actually that overstimulating as well. And like, and everyone there, shout out to the team there because they are just the most wonderful people. And
the best.
and if you go to a show, also go to the haggis box.
Yes,
We
shout
like
out
go
Haggis
to the
Box.
haggis box,
But
get some haggis.
it's really good. Like the Storytelling Centre is great. It's bang on what you said. It's on the Royal Mile, but like you can
Yeah.
pop in and get a seat at a table and have a lunch and it'd be chill. Like
Yeah,
it's
go to
such
the
a.
John Knox house. Why not? Taking some history,
Do you want to know a terrible secret, Rosie?
please.
I have never been to the John Knox house.
Oh no.
I have been doing shows for 10 years at the Storytelling Centre. I did my first show at the Storytelling Centre would have been December 2013
Whoa. Oh yeah, of course. I
with Joe
forgot
Caulfield's
that's time.
Speakeasy. And I've
Wow.
still never done the John Knox.
They would probably let you, I'm sure they would let you in for free at this point. You basically fester on the walls.
Isn't that terrible? I should really do it.
You should take a little guide. They have laminated guides. It's very nice.
It's very
It's
nice.
like
It's very
you
nice.
feel the ambiance.
Well, that's the hard recommendation. Everyone go into the John Knox house
Don't come to our shows. Just
yeah.
take in the history and
tell
then
them
leave.
Kev and Rosie sent you. That's the take home. This has been lovely. Like it's been so. I'm so glad to be able to chat to you. And as your tenure as the Grand Slam champion comes to an end, I hope there's a worthy successor. I'm sure there will be from the lineup that is there.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited to see what you continue to do, Rosie. Like it's been an absolute joy seeing you kind of blow up in the scene because we met at Fringe.
Yes.
In our first Fringe Slam we did, which would have been 2019.
No, 2022.
Time.
Time.
2022. Yeah, I remember that was the first time I saw you, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, very good. And then, like, you know, to be like a couple years later, you are like my go-to poet. So yeah, it's been a lovely experience, and hopefully judging isn't too painful.
I'm excited.
Take the Hannah Lavery spirit. I was like, sorry for making you judge, Hannah. I know it's an awful job. She went, what are you talking about? I love judging.
Yeah, no, I do too. I genuinely do. Like it sucks in a way, but also it's like, yeah, I'm gonna run with it. It's like if I'm asked to judge, I'm going to be judgy. Like
Rosie's the Simon Cowell of the judging panel.
I'm like Craig Revel Horwood, but more fruity. Like
excellent. Well, yes. if you've got a ticket, we will see you at the Grand Slam final. If not, we will see you at Rosie's show. If not, we will see you at Best of Fringe. We will see you somewhere at the Fringe this August. Guys, have a really good one. This has been a very, very special episode of Loudcast. All of my love to the spectacular Rosie Jo Hunter, and we will see you next time. Good night. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you could hit the like button, if you could hit the subscribe button, and make sure to ring that bell icon so you don't miss any updates from us in the future. If you want to go that extra mile and support us a little further, we do have a Patreon channel with loads of exclusive goodies, and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. We appreciate your help, guys, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.